testing our code is a great way to ensure that what we're writing is, well, actually going to work. There's also a lot of test-driven sort of like methods of creating code that help us ensure that what we're building is exactly what we want to build, and maybe even figuring out what we want to build before we build it, which I know it's crazy talk just thinking about like, what we want to build before we build it, but sometimes it comes in handy. So because of that, there's a few ways that we can actually test our code in Rust without having to resort to some kind of third-party testing system like some other languages use. So the first one, and probably the first one we're exposed to in the Rust book, is the just like a test inside of a file. So let's head over into the library here, and let's create, like, I don't know, maybe let's create a function here. So we just have a pub function. Maybe this one like just says hello. So like say hi. Maybe this takes in like, a name, which is a stir, and it's going to return a string, and it's just going to say hello to this person. So I'm going to do a format of hello name and return that. Now, if I wanted to test this, there's a couple different options here. Inside this file, I can create a section where we're going to have our tests. So we're going to use something called a config. So CFG, open parentheses here, and I'm going to do test. What this is doing is it's telling the compiler that if we're in test mode, go ahead and include and compile and run all of this code. And if we're not in test mode, ignore all of this and don't include it. So that way, when we do compile for release mode, it's not going to include any of this whatsoever, and it's not going to be inside the binary. So we don't need to worry about it. We can have as many tests as we want. Now, generally speaking, we need some kind of block for config to be, part of, to say like, hey, this block is going to be, included or not included. We're gonna just have a mod test here, and I'm just gonna make this an inline mod. So that way, all of this stuff now is going to be included or not included based upon test. Okay, so then sometimes you have to hit save before the any errors telling you what's going on about like the config, to make that go away or not. Now, if I want access to this function here, because this is a separate module, I need to actually include it in. So we're going to just do a mod super : star just to get access to anything that's inside of here. To do expected. Oh, sorry, not mod, use. Okay, so now it's just yelling at me that I don't have that I'm not actually using anything from it. So let's go ahead and create a test. All tests are marked by this hash open square bracket test. Everything after this, if I have a function, and this function can be named whatever I want, it doesn't matter. There's no like, it has to be like describe. It's not like, BDD or anything like that. We can use BDD naming with this, but it's like whatever I want. So like whatever. We also can return a result just in case we need to like have some error handling. By default, we don't return anything at all from functions. And we can't just return normal things. It has to be a result or nothing at all. For the most part, I don't return things, but sometimes returning a result is kind of nice, so I can just use that question mark operator instead of a bunch of unwraps. All right, so let's say we want to test this say hi function here. So maybe let's get the result of it. So result is equal to say hi, and the name is going to be, I don't know, we'll just use my name, Brooks. Okay, so I have access to this, and now maybe I want like what it should be. So let expected equal to a string from, this is going to be Brooks. Now, there's a couple different assertions that we can use here. I can just do assert. And if you start typing assert, Rust Analyzer will show me I can do assert equal, assert inhabited, assert not equal, uninitiated valid, and zero valid. All of these are very useful, although generally speaking, I pull out assert equal like 95% of the time. It just turns out to be what I really care about the most. It's basically takes in two things and asserts that they're equal to each other. Now, whatever these things are, do have to implement partial equals so that way they can be compared with each other. And if for some reason they can't, then there is an assert, which then is looking for a true statement, true or false. If it's false, it's going to throw an error and then let us know that something is wrong. And if it's true, then the test will pass. Let's just do assert equal here. And we're going to expect that result is going to be equal to expected. Now I could just write the string from and the say hi inside of here, and everything will be fine and work as expected here. Rust Analyzer gives us some nice interactions inside of VS Code. I can actually click this run test. It'll run the test for us and let us know like, hey, what's the result of this? Does this work? So if I take a look at this, it's running the test and it's saying, hey, left does not equal to right. Look at that. Well, the left is hello Brooks and the right is Brooks. Well, that's because I have this hello Brooks here. And so I have to decide, well, what was I actually expecting to have happen? Probably hello Brooks, like that. Let's save this, rerun the test, and now it's passing and everything is great. Okay, so that's one style of testing for us to use. Another style is doc tests. So if I were to come into here, let's open up our docs. So let's run cargo doc. I previously did a -- open to get the URL from where this documentation is. And I've got that open over here. So we can actually see, here's our say hi function, and we can see what that is. I can actually write documentation in the form of markdown for say hi. I just use 3 slashes. And now I can just write markdown for this. So I can just say hi, say hello to whomever wants to say hi. Obviously it's just a text that's up to us, and it's kind of important for us to make sure that documentation makes sense. With a sort of like a contrived example like this, it's documentation is a little bit hard. That being said, we can write actual code inside of here, because in Markdown, we can use 3 backticks and just start writing code. Now, notice that this is kind of a little bit annoying where I'm having to do like the 3 slashes again. Now, if you can set your editor to like auto insert those, that's really nice. But what I've noticed, or at least what Rust Analyzer lets me do, is I can do Control Dot and replace the line comments with this. And now I can just do the exact same thing here. So this is a /** and ends with //. So it's slightly different than the normal comment of /*. It's /**. All right, so let's see. I want to write this. I want to like actually run this code. So we're gonna just do. Now I can't just do a say hi. So I can't just say like let hello equals say hi Brooks. Like that. If I try to run you, now everything is fine right now because it is a comment, so Rust Analyzer is ignoring it at this point. But notice that I have this run doc test here. And if I come out to the terminal, I can just do cargo test. Cargo test will run all the tests, including doc tests. Now, doc tests really are just the sample code that we have in these examples. What this means is that if you're looking at documentation that has been compiled, then it's guaranteed to run for that version of Rust and that version of the library, because Rust won't let you publish to Crates.io without the test passing. Okay, so cannot find function say hi in the scope. We notice that it can't find this. So we actually have to do a use. This is modules. So use modules. And then I think just say hi. Something else that's maybe a little bit annoying is I don't actually get access to autocomplete here when I'm writing this code in the doc test. So it's a little bit annoying to write these, but it's really, really useful later on. So if I want to do an assert, exactly like we had down here, in fact, I can just sort of take this code, copy you, and replace you here. Now everything should be happy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun our test. I'm going to recompile our documentation. So cargo doc. I'm going to come back into our documentation, hit refresh. Here is say hi, and then it shows our documentation, including this assert equal. So if you're looking at documentation and you see some kind of assert, you can then know exactly that this code runs. Not only does it compile, but the assert runs too and is actually working correctly. So those are doc tests, and we also have these module tests. Now, sometimes we want to test multiple systems at the same time. Those would be integration tests. Those are going to be outside of the source folder. So inside of modules here, we're going to create a new tests folder, and then we can just create files and folders however we want. It follows the same rules that the rest of Rust code does inside of source. Although inside of here, we don't have to create like a lib or a main. We could just name it whatever we want. So like, we're testing hello.rs, let's say. And so inside of here, all we need to do is just mark each test with a test, and we can just do a function testing hello. And now we get to basically just run our full test here. We notice that there's these run tests that are happening. That's a Rust Analyzer noticing that these are integration tests. Generally speaking, integration tests run like the entire thing and test an entire system all at the same time. If we want to go and take a look at an integration test that already runs for the final project, a sneak peek here, if we look inside, we have these tests here. Wait, nope, that's the wrong project. Here's these tests here. And let's take a look at entities. We can see that we have like function create entity. It's a test, and it's testing the entire process of how to do that. So these type of integration tests can be very helpful in something called double loop testing. That's where you create the integration test first that tests the entire flow of like something that you want to do before necessarily you do it. And then the inner loop test would be either the doc test or just the module test, the inline, like sort of like the file test that is actually doing that one specific thing. So for example, you might, we have a test for creating an entity. There might be several tests, for each of these methods. Like I have a test for creating the world. I have a test for creating an entity and a test for this with component function. And that allows us to sort of like be focused. It's part of test-driven development. And it's something that I find helpful when I'm writing, modules and libraries and other code. It's absolutely not necessary, but it is supported by Rust in case you want to do it. Anyway, that should get you started with tests and testing your code and making sure that what you're writing is exactly what you expect that you're writing. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.